The New Zealand Bird Book, written by Sarita Betschart. Chapter 1. The Big Wide World. Once upon a time, there was a family of little rabbits. They lived with their mother in a tidy burrow underneath the roots of a tawa tree. Early one morning, Mrs. Rapati told her young children it was time for them to go and make a life of their own. One of her sons, Peter Rapati, was eager to find adventure and gain knowledge of the great wide world around him. The sun had just risen above the trees when Peter set off to find a new place of his own. He went lippity-lippity through the dew-drenched fields until he came to a fence. He squeezed under it and found himself in a beautiful hidden garden with archways, wrought iron gates, and tree-filled glades. He started to nibble on a patch of fresh grass, feeling very pleased with himself, when he noticed a movement out of the corner of his eye. Peter looked up to find he was surrounded by a group of large brown and white birds with green throats and a spray of feathers on the top of their heads. Some young chicks were also peeping at him from behind their mothers. "Help! Help! I mean, hello?" Peter stuttered. One of the chicks walked from the ring of circling birds and came right up to Peter with a curious but friendly look in his little black eyes. But before he could speak, he was interrupted. "Pee-wee, get back here," his mother warned, and the young peafowl slouched back to his mother. "You have no idea what kind of diseases he might carry. Keep your distance," she hissed at her son. He shrugged with embarrassment at the rabbit, who was now cowering in the grass, then was hustled behind his mother's back by a strong wing. There was a sudden loud alarm call, "Beak-gawk-gawk," coming from right behind the group. They all jumped in fright, and Peter wished he was back in his safe, warm burrow. "What have we here? Make way! Make way! I need to see." A larger and more colourful bird strode into the circle. He was a beautiful and stately peacock with shimmering green and blue feathers. He looked Peter up and down in silence, while Peter shrank deeper into the grass. "Beak-gawk, beak-gawk, gawk-gawk. What are you doing here, intruder?" the peacock asked him. "I meant no harm. I am just looking for a place to make my home." "I am Pikake, Lord of the Manor. You are not welcome here, little rabbit. Move on." Peter started to bound away, thankful that he'd been let go so easily. Just before he pushed under the hedge at the edge of the garden, he turned around for one final look. The peacock had spread his magnificent tail and was strutting over to a large window of the house. He admired his fabulous display of feathers in the reflection while the peahens milled around him. The peacock then jumped up onto the roof of the house and started loudly proclaiming, "Cow! Cow!" "I don't think this would be the right place for me anyway," Peter murmured to himself as he squeezed under the bushes and away. In the next paddock, Peter saw a tall macrocarpa tree. Perched on nearly every branch were large turkeys with black feathers and bald heads. Peter had never met turkeys before, so he hopped over to the base of the tree and looked up at the crowd of funny-looking birds. The largest gobbler jumped down from his perch and spread his brown and white fan-shaped tail. He glared at Peter with his small black eyes surrounded by bright blue skin. "Gobble, gobble, gobble, gobble." The red wattle under his chin and the snood that hung over his beak both swung back and forth in rage as he advanced on Peter. In horror, Peter turned tail and bounced across the paddock as quickly as his little legs would carry him. As he came up to a barberry hedge growing along the fence line, he was startled by a sudden squawk, squawk, and up flew a pheasant with beautiful striped tail feathers and a bright red head. Peter watched as the pheasant disappeared over the hedge and out of sight. "Oh, Mama, I do miss your safe, warm burrow. What have I got myself into? I have met some beautiful-looking birds today, but what a pity their actions have not been as lovely as the feathers they wear. Will I ever find a good place to make my home?" With a sigh, Peter continued his search. Ahead he saw a garden that looked inviting. He made his way towards it, but as he neared the tall netting fence, he saw some movement. Racing up to the wires came a shaggy brown dog, and when he spotted Peter, he began to bark loudly and run up and down the fence line frantically. He seemed to be trying to find a spot to push through. Peter did not wait to see if the large shaggy dog was successful in finding a hole in the fence. Instead, he raced off in a different direction. When he finally stopped for a rest, Peter found himself near another farmhouse with an abundant garden growing around it. His tummy started to rumble, so with some trepidation, Peter went into the garden to find something to eat. He did not meet with any loud or rude occupants in this garden, so he began to relax and enjoy the food. His main course for lunch was a large clump of sweet kumara leaves. Halfway through his meal, he was startled by a sound coming from the back door of the farmhouse. The door opened and out walked 3 young children, followed by their mother. They were the Cowan family who lived on the farm and owned the garden that Peter was thinking about making his home. Peter sat very still, watching them carefully. They went towards the small shed in the flower garden, and he felt himself starting to relax again. Then out of the shed they came, this time with baskets and spades in hand, and started walking straight towards him. Peter froze, but as they came nearer, he decided to make a dash for it and race towards the cow paddock.
Mum, look, a bunny! Umarapati, umarapati, uma, uma, uma.
He heard one of the children sing out.